I started using recreationally in junior high. I mean, I can't say I had a bad childhood. I can't say that there was any determining factor that made me turn to drugs or alcohol. I was a teenager and I just did. I mean, I wish that I had a better excuse, but I don't. I mean, that's just the way it was. I didn't use heavily until after I graduated from high school. Mind you, I was raised in the Church of Christ here in Andrews. My dad, my mother, who's here, my sister. People in the Church of Christ, you don't use drugs. So I started walking away from the church probably in about 8th grade and started to go to other churches to see if my excuse was I don't feel uplifted. I don't feel like my heart is in this church. Really what it was is I'm sinning, and it's hard for me to sit here in a church around people who want the best for me, and I'm lying to them, not only to them, but to myself. And right out of high school, I met a guy, and he sold cocaine. So I wound up marrying him. We were married for 15 months. My coke habit went crazy wild. I thought I was a coke addict. I thought there's no way I can walk away from it. He was the coke addict that's been doing it for 20 years, that sees people in the closet that don't exist. You know, he'll stare out of a peephole on your door for hours when it's actually the head of a nail, and he just thinks he's seeing things. You know, one of those people that's far beyond an occasional cocaine user. One day I came home from work and he was convinced I had brought someone and they were in our home. So he decided to throw the boiling water that was on the stove on me, and then he threw me down a flight of stairs. So the next day when he got up and went to work, I couldn't stand up. I had a concussion apparently. Dizzy, falling down, for those of you who've dealt with domestic violence or any kind of fighting, you know how it feels whenever you get the crap knocked out of you. I called my dad and I said, I need you to come get me. I moved my stuff out, and that was it. I haven't seen him again to this day, and he was in Odessa. I never touched cocaine again, ever. I got back in the church. I got married again. I had my 2 kids who happen to be here right now. And you know, I went to church periodically, and I always had that wanting and that desire to be the person that my parents wanted me to be the person that God wanted me to be. But for some reason, maybe, I don't really know why, but for some reason I didn't feel like I was worthy enough for God's love, which we all know isn't true. No matter where we've been, no matter what road we've gone down, and some of us have gone down some pretty rough roads. God loves us. No matter what you do, no matter what you've done, no matter who you've hurt, no matter if you've hurt yourself, we're all worthy of God's grace. Every single one of us. Anyway, going back to, I got back into drugs. I had a few falls. I had some back issues, obviously, from being thrown down this flight of stairs. And so what happens when you have back pain? What do doctors do? They put you on pain medicine. Oxycontin and Loratab became my best friends, and fentanyl back then. My pain management doctor was one of the ones that you walk in and you ask for your medication. Here's what I want you to give me, and he'll write it. At one point, I was taking enough for 8 grown men a day. That's how much medication he was giving me. I was taking 180 hydrocodone, 180 Oxycontin, and fentanyl patches, and I was walking around functioning. I had built up such a tolerance in a small amount of time over the course of about 2 years. And in that amount of time, for people who have addictions like that, go baby. You gotta go outside. For people who have problems like that for such a long period, hold on a second. Yeah. Thank you. She's dying to know what's going on here. For people who've had those kind of issues that have become dependent on prescription medication, you start to become basically a walking dead person. I mean, you're just like a mummy. You're like, you have no emotions, you feel nothing. All you care about is not going through DTs. All you care about is not the legs and the sick to the stomach and the crawling and the... I wouldn't wish that the DTs from that addiction on my worst enemy. I mean, it's horrible. So what do? You find a way to get more medicine. And in those few years, I ruined a marriage. I walked away from my kids. They were 1.5 and she was 4 months. I mean, I had a good life. I had a good career. I had a great family. Still have a great family. It got to a point to where I knew that it was getting so bad that I was gonna die. I mean, your liver, your kidneys, things just don't work quite the way that they're supposed to at that point. And you're stealing from mom who has back problems far more severe than mine could have ever been. And hurting her and seeing her hurt to make sure I didn't hurt. You get to a point to where, okay, I have my beautiful children that I worked so hard to have, fertility issues, treatments, what have you. And of course I needed God then. Whenever I wanted to have kids, whenever I wanted the things I wanted, God help me, I love you, you know, the perfect Christian example. But boy, whenever I need those pills, you know, God wasn't in my mouth. God wasn't in my heart. He wasn't in my head. I didn't care who I had to hurt. And I did. I destroyed a lot of things. We all know we destroy things as addicts, as recovering addicts. So it got to a point I started having seizures whenever I went through when I started DTing. So I made a decision to go to rehab. Went into rehab, I was in detox for 11 days. Then you move over to the big house or what have you. I went to Serenity House in Abilene. I was on fire in that place. The old Jaci was bad. I was leading groups. I became president of the house. I used to lead the meetings. I used to hold people accountable for what we're doing in here. You know, get in the groups that they break you down into. I'd be the first person to talk, be the first person to help a person out. I felt like myself again. My parents saw it, y'all did see it. They came, they visited, and you could see the relief in my parents and my sisters and my grandmother's face, like, oh, there she is. There she is, finally, out of that, what would you call it, a fog. That's exactly what it was. I was out of the fog. Well, I still was having problems sleeping. And you know, us addicts. I had mentioned it to a girl 5 days before I was supposed to graduate from Serenity House. I mean, every counselor, you're doing great. Everyone just had hopes. If anyone's gonna make it, she's gonna make it. Just talking, still having problems sleeping. Okay, well, this girl comes, knocks on the door. She said, take this, you can sleep. Y'all, I knew I'd used weed, cocaine, maybe shrooms once, and then prescription pills. Other than that, I didn't know nothing about nothing. And I wish I kind of would have back down. Anyway, come to find out it was a Xanax. Okay, it knocks me out in the middle of a common room, which obviously people around noticed. So the next morning, I got drug tested. Well, I was asked very politely to leave. The shame to want to pick up the phone and call my parents, my grandma, my sister, and my ex-husband, I couldn't do it. So what did I do? The girl across the hall from me got kicked out too. So what did I do? I said, you know what? I will stay with her for a few days. still on fire. Still, I'm going to stay sober. I'm going to stay sober. I can do this. I know I can do it. I've got, God's back in my life. I want this. I want it more than anything in this world. She was a meth addict. She shot dope. For the first 2 or 3 days, it was okay. I would take Xanax to sleep. It would knock me on my ass, and obviously, I went and talked to my dad. My dad is obviously not alive anymore, but went to the cemetery before I came here, and I said, Dad, if you help me with anything, please help me not to cuss in here. I knew it was going to happen. I'm sorry. So it got to where you will take a handful of them to go to sleep. Okay, let me get to the point. One night, after being knocked out from taking however many Xanax, I woke up startled, frightened, heart racing, just like, what is happening to me? Freaked out. My roommate and her boyfriend are across from me, and he's holding a syringe in his hand. We decided it was time for you to wake up.
Oh no.
They shot me up with 30 units of ice while I was asleep. I didn't even know what ice was then. I mean, I liked it though. The addict's in your head, you know it's wrong. You know you should hate the people for what they just did. I've never stuck a needle in my body, ever. I've never done meth, and my first experience with meth was entirely too much and in a needle. For those of you, and I don't know if any of y'all know, I would assume maybe one or two of you have the experience with methamphetamines, and it's an evil drug. It does evil things to lots and lots of people. And I was hooked, and so I disappeared. My parents are expecting to pick me up 2 days later. Y'all, and this is the first time my mom's heard this testimony, so. My parents are supposed to pick me up 2 days later, and she's gone. Where is she? How do I pick up the phone? And I didn't want to pick up the phone. I wanted to get high. I wasn't in love with the drug. Well, at that time, I wasn't in love with the drug. I was in love with the needle. And I know that some of you know that, and I know that no one will understand that other than a person who stuck a needle in their body. God was nowhere. I didn't care. I didn't want. All I wanted to do was get high and stay high. Because if I started coming down, you start thinking, oh my God, I was supposed to graduate a week ago. Wonder what my parents are thinking. Do they even know I'm alive? They didn't. So over the course, within Abilene, Texas is my definition of hell on earth. And it's just because of the things that I've experienced and the things that I've gone through. And it's a scary, scary place. Maybe it was because of the drugs too. Well, obviously it was because of the drugs. But within a 2-week period, I was out in a field cooking meth with people I did not know. They knew nothing about me. I mean, I got thrown into a world that I only thought existed on television. And that is no joke whatsoever. Never knew that people could really be like that. People could really ruin your life that fast. I mean, I didn't make a choice to put a needle in my body the first time, but I chose every other time. So I am responsible for it 100%. And I know now, being sober, that was the devil. He saw me doing so well. He said, man, no. This isn't going to happen. It can't happen. She can't do good. Let's see what we can do to throw a kink in her plan. And he did. he took everything away from me. I ruined my life in an 11-month period. I mean, I got involved and saw things that I know a lot of you can read. There's a couple of people that have personally been affected by meth in a very severe way, and that's no joke. The things you read on TV, in the newspapers, the things that you hear in this community, it is no joke. People are soulless on methamphetamines. I've watched people, things that you would never, ever, ever want a person to have to live through and to have to not know what to do. I got involved with an organized crime family. You know, my old man, he was a cook, he was high ranking, and you know, for me, gangs, really? I mean, I'm from Andrews. I mean, it just didn't seem, okay, you say you're this, yeah, okay. You know, you think it's something that happens in a prison and stays within a prison. You know, you think, I'm trying not to just keep on going on about that, but bad things happen. Bad things happen to me. My old man used to lock me in a room. It was a laundry room. He used to padlock me in. He'd get me so messed up because back then I couldn't shoot myself up. I didn't know how to do it. I didn't know anything about it, but I didn't want to be sober, so of course I let him do it, you know? He would get me so messed up, I'd either be freaking the heck out, or I just would be completely dumb. I mean, just, he would leave me in there so that he could go and cook dope, and he could go and do the things with other women that he couldn't do when I was there. So, anyway, I go through many months of dealing with things that the depravity is beyond your wildest imagination. But now mind you, I had come back to see my parents finally in August of 2009. And obviously they were concerned. Obviously they had no idea what happened. I came with my dope cook, who was my boyfriend, who was involved in whatever he was. And I stole money for the first time in my life ever from my dad on his birthday. Didn't know it was his birthday, had no clue what day it was. The last time I talked to my father, I told him I hated him and never wanted to see him again. October 1st of 2009, as the gang tactical unit and task force was kicking down our front door, my dad was killed in a car accident on 1788. It was also my mom's birthday. So, be careful what you say to people, I guess. You know, you never know when the last time it is that you're going to be able to tell a person that you love them. And living with regret is nothing I would want anyone to have to live with. I found out that my dad was dead in jail. I thought, because I was still so messed up, I thought that she had made up the story to get me to come home. My family bailed me out the next day. My family that I knew it was no joke. Family that came from far away, they picked me up. I came up here. While everyone was asleep, I drove back to Abilene and got my old man, brought him here and took him to my dad's funeral. I don't remember my dad's funeral. I remember nothing about it. I know that afterwards, the only thing I could think of was getting the heck out of there and going and getting high because I couldn't deal with what was going on. The next 5 months of my life where you stay high, you stay as high as you can, you do whatever it takes, no matter what. Suicide attempts, more than one. And one day I was stabbed and left for dead, basically, and I finally had enough. He got arrested a few hours after that happened. I feel like that was definitely a God thing, because I never would have been able to leave if that hadn't happened. I never would have had the courage, because I knew he couldn't get me then. I knew that he couldn't hurt me again. I called my mom and I was home within 48 hours. And you know, things weren't fixed. It took me a long time to actually get sober. Lots of things happened. I still got high at home whenever I came home, because I said I couldn't deal with my dad's death and the things that I had done, which was only an excuse for me to get high. Then when I got served with papers to terminate my parental rights, which, of course, I obviously, oh, how dare he do that? No. That day that I got served with those papers, it's a gut check moment. This becomes real. Not that everything else isn't real, but whenever it comes down to that, after obviously some shock, I decided that it was time for things to get different. I went to court. My ex-husband made it absolutely 100% necessary, or I had to. If I wanted to see my children, I had to go to church. He fought me in court. He fought me, hours going back and forth. And the one thing he would not ever give up on is me coming to church. And my ex-husband didn't know God before whenever we were married. So from the time that I left and the time that I came back, he found God. And my children found God. And a lot of y'all got to watch that. So it took me a really long time to realize how much God had to do with the things that took place in my life. I started getting sober. I started to become a human again. You know, I had to teach myself how to eat again. I weighed 82 pounds when I came home. All of us know I've had my teeth redone. I've had all this stuff done. Diane's seen me from the beginning, I think, out of everyone in here, and Aaron probably, and Jerry and Billy. And they've seen, I used to come here still, when I first started coming here, I used to come in here needing to go to sleep. Kelly, yeah, I needed to go to sleep. I've been a little while, but these people still embrace me. You know, the first time I walked in here, well, actually, it wasn't here. The first time I walked in here, Jerry's known my family forever, so he obviously embraced me and loved me and knew. But two bikers, it was Tom Hogan and Hoot. You know, if you're an addict, you can see it. You can see it when someone walks in. It was like a big old sign. Hello, you need to talk to her. So Tom walks over to me, and no one knows who I am. Wraps his arm around me and said, "You come sit with me." And he told me his story. And you know, there were people who had, my ex-husband was in this church, is in this church. A lot of people saw his pain and got to see him raising 2 children alone and how hard it was and all those things. And anyway, I'm getting off task, but it took me a really long time to realize that Brandon and my children saved my life. And even more so, the guilt of my father. I believe this is the way that I've been able to deal with the way that my father died and the way that things were left. My dad would have given his life every single day, over and over and over and over again, to get me to come home and to get me to be a mom to my kids. And I believe that's what he did, because if he wouldn't have died, I never would have came back. My mom and sister would have been burying me. And I know that in my heart of hearts. And that's maybe, I'm sure it's hard for other people to see how that makes sense, or maybe it isn't. Maybe it does make sense. But I know that he knew I loved him. And I know he knew that I was sick. And I know he knew that deep down inside, minus the drugs, I was still the little girl that he loved. And I was going to be a mom one day. The mother I am today. The woman I am today. And now the wife I am today. That's my husband. And he's just like my dad. He's the perfect example of what my dad wanted for me. He's a God-fearing man. He works hard. He loves me, even though I'm a damaged individual. I have scars, not just on the outside, but on the inside, that will never go away. When I came home, I had severe PTSD. Severe. And it's getting better. And it's getting better because I made a choice to come here every single day. I cried for the first, year, Mom? Diane, I cried all the time in church. Carrie was always talking to me. You know how you go in and sit in the church and you hear the sermon and you listen to the music and you think, oh, that just can't be a coincidence. It has to be God talking to me. And it is. And for people to say, oh, whatever, it's just coincidence. No, it isn't. God has, I don't want to say healed me because I'm still healing, obviously. It'll probably take a really long time for me to heal. But every day that I'm here in the church, every day that I am here in this group, every day that I'm a mother, every day that I'm a wife, a daughter, a sister, is all God. That's all God's doing, because I did not deserve his love. I did not deserve anyone's forgiveness. But who am I to say what I deserve? God decides that. God, I'm forgiven. I'm redeemed.
Yes.
I am redeemed. And without God, like I said, I just know. I would be dead too. My mom and sister would be visiting us both. Every day that I learn more about God's love, and every day that I grow stronger health-wise, grow stronger in every part of my life, I know that I'm forgiven, I'm redeemed, and it can only go up from here. Things can only get better. With God in your life, it only gets better.